Hello, it's Barb, and it's Friday. Good to see you today. I'm glad you're here. Yeah, it's Friday all day long. My body's a little bit tired today, but you know, it is what it is. Okay, so first of all, I need to let you know that I will not be here I will be missing the next 2 Mondays, possibly the next 3 Mondays, I don't know. But anyway, I'll miss the next 2 Mondays and the next 2 Fridays for sure. So, just so you know. Okay, so I'll miss 2 Mondays, possibly 3 Mondays, and 2 Fridays. Hello, Dorothy. Good to see you. Good to see you today. Hope you're doing well. Yeah, so I will be gone for the next couple of weeks, and I am looking forward to that. Not that I don't want to see you guys, but I'm looking forward to a little bit of a break. I am. Okay, so, hi Peggy. So what we're doing today, we're going to go ahead and get started right away, because I'm going to do this as long as I can, and then I'm going to quit. That's what's happening. Okay, so the whole thing from what I'm doing today was inspired kind of like from this piece. This was a page in my journal. This is in the Dina Wakley journal, done on the canvas page that is in there. And so this was a caricature of my cat Charlie. Hey Shelley. Hi Connie. Yes, Dorothy, yes. Yes, ma'am. So this was a caricature of Charlie that I turned into a Christmas themed and just a goofy little painting of him, and then I turned it into a Christmas card that we did several years ago. So anyway, we're gonna do something. I've been doing what we're doing today sort of similarly, loosely based on that. And last Monday, or on Monday, I had started a caricature of one of our dogs here, whom we have lost, because we've lost all 3 dogs in a really short period of time. But one of those dogs was named Clarence. He was a border collie, and so I took several pictures of him, and kind of did a loose sketch about him. And I was starting to paint that with you guys on a gesso board, a square gesso board. And the reason I chose it was because it was square. Hello, but it was square, but it was so smooth that the paint was just not cooperating with me. And I did not gesso it because it was called gesso board. I didn't gesso it or anything, and it was just not cooperating. And even though I went ahead and played with painting the dog and that kind of stuff, I went, nope, this isn't working. So when that happens, I just have to stop, regroup, and do something different. So I did. So I worked in a journal instead, a square journal. And so this is what I have done at this point. So I have gone ahead and painted him in, so he looks like a color book painting. And so we're gonna kind of play around with him today. But this is Clarence with a Santa hat on, but he's now been done in a journal, square journal, instead of on a gesso board. Okay? Hey, Joan. So here he is at this point. So I'm going to put him up on an angle, and we're going to switch We might stay here for a little bit. Anyway, this is Clarence. I'll show you the pictures of him that I blew up and printed out so that we could look at. Hey, Barbara Clark. So this is Clarence. These are the different views I have of him. He was a great big border collie. Big border collie. Hi, Purple Nana Linda. And he was just a beautiful, sturdy old boy. And he was an outside dog, and he ruled the roost, and he liked to, go everywhere and tell everybody, kind of who was boss a little bit, but he was a great dog. Very kind, very sweet dog. And so we're going to play with Clarence today. So what I did, first of all, is I took my pattern, or a piece of tracing paper, actually, a piece of tracing paper, and I cut out just the basic shape. So this is just tracing paper. It's a kind of a heavy tracing paper, a little bit more like vellum. Not quite as heavy as most vellums, but close. And so I made a mask, which means it's the general outline of the image. And yeah, we're going to stay here. So I made a general image of the piece and then cut it out so I can mask that off, which means I can protect the image as it is. It's not finished by any means, but it is painted enough that I don't want to lift the paint off of it. So I'm going to just put a piece of painter's tape around this to hold the mask in place, and then we're going to play with some stencils and some paint. So I hope you all are doing well today. And this is my disposable palette, and I have 3 or 4 stencils here that we're going to play with. So I have a couple of different bits of circles, 2 different sizes. This one is a circle grid, which I think is the actual name of that. This one I'm not sure is still available. And this one's a Diane Reevely stencil, but I'm not sure what the name of that one is. This is a Crafter's Workshop stencil. It's handwriting by Julie. It's called Art Is. That's the name of this one. Comes in, most of the Crafter's Workshop stencils are available in 2 different sizes. And this one was Julie Pfaffen-Balzer's art turned into a stencil. You're listening more than watching. Okay, that sounds great. Thank you for being here, Barbara. So those are the stencils I'm going to use, and I have a couple of stencil brushes out, and this is base coated. All of this is base coated in golden fluid acrylics. I'm going to switch now to my craft acrylic paints because I find them easier to work in for shading personally. So that's what I'm doing. Barbara has the Art Is stencil. It's a good stencil. It really is. And so I thought we would use this stencil, and debating about the colors of paint to use. I think we're going to go back to, I think I'm going to use some white and then also some burnt sienna in the background, and maybe some blue. I might have to break my rule here, and actually no, I think I've got colors in the craft paint that'll work just fine. Yeah, these will work. So I have Sea Breeze and Bahama Blue, which are both Americana Deco Art colors. So we'll use those. Okay? All right. Here we go. Back here. I think these will work. Let's give it a shot and see. Because I want these in the background, and so I don't want a huge contrast in color. So I'm just gonna put a little bit of this out. Don't need much, but I need enough that I can get a hold of it. Apparently this little bottle of paint needs to be replaced, so we'll switch to Bahama Blue. Hope you all are doing well today. You doing well? Miss Shelley, I haven't talked to you in ages. Okay, so we have a little Bahama Blue. That's what this one is, and this is Sea Breeze. This one is a little bluer. This is a little greener. So I have a couple of stencil brushes here. Stencil brushes are flat across the ends, and they're round. So let's use, just going to put in the background a little bit of this Art Is stencil. So let's get a little bit of this. Not much. I want it to be really light on the brush, hardly any paint on the brush. Yeah, I know. Okay, so let's put a little of this down. And I shouldn't have to worry because I have my image masked off. So I'm just going to put a little bit, and maybe you can see that, maybe you can't. It's okay. Because I really want I want this way in the background so you can hardly see it. And when you work with a stencil brush, you just tap with the brush. Will get more pronounced as we come up a little bit higher in the image. Yeah, just barely, just like it's way down deep. Like it's in the ocean and it's just surfacing. There we go. You can see that one a little bit better. That might even be a little darker than I intended for it to be. You don't need to be able to read this at all. It's just some texture, visual texture in the background. And I'm just tipping the stencil back and forth so that I don't really want it to read. I don't want you to look at it and be able to read it all the way across the page. So just little hints of letters and words. And then just a tiny little bit more down here. Okay. Same thing over here. Good enough. Okay. So just so you can see this for sure, just want to let you see it. Okay. See there, you can see it. You can hardly see what's up here in this corner, but that's all right. So just a little bit. Just a little bit. I might put a little bit more up here in this corner. Since it was turned out to be so very light. Yeah, it's still pretty light, but that's okay. It's okay. All right, so that is all that we're going to do with that stencil. And then I'm going to take this brush and I'm going to just put it in water. I will not use it again for this stenciling session, because if I did, it would, with having water in it, it would be a mess. So I've switched to a different brush. Equally stiff, also flat across the end, round brush. Stencil brushes are stiff and flat like that. Okay, let's go to this circle grid. This one has a lot of paint on it, so we'll see what kind of image we get. And I'm going to use a little bit of burnt sienna. A little burnt sienna that will pick up the color from the dog, which is, he's primarily burnt sienna like, meaning I don't know that I used actually burnt sienna, but not this brand of burnt sienna anyway. Okay, so I'm going to get the brush loaded up. And then make sure that I'm not getting too much. Don't want to get too much paint on the brush. It needs to be pretty dry. Alrighty, so let's put a few spots up here and we'll see how this looks. And this stencil brush is not a good one. It's not bad. I'm going to switch brushes. So let me grab another stencil brush. This one's really too stiff. Fortunately, I have no shortage of brushes. I know you can't imagine that, can you? All right, let's try this one. Let's try this one. So I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to load the brush. If your brush isn't working, you just gotta switch and try something else. But see, it didn't give me a whole lot. It gave me a little bit, but not as much as I wanted. That's a little better. Okay. And a few more down here, and I'm just holding with my fingers, which is not the safest way to stencil. Good enough. Okay, so I'm going to reload. And let's put a few. just getting some background imagery and texture going on. And different levels of light and dark coming right over some of the other stenciling that I just did. Sorry if the tapping is annoying you. It is what it is. Okay. And maybe just a little bit more down here. Okay, good enough. All right, so we have a little bit of that. My stencil brushes have been around for so long that they're losing their bristles. I'm going to put just a couple right here. All right, there we go. So we have a little texture in the background with some spots and some handwriting. And then I have one more stencil that I'd like to use a little bit of. Hey, Shoe. And this brush is really trying to come apart. Maybe we'll have another brush for the last, for our last color. Let's try this one. Okay. And lastly, we're going to use a little bit of this green, and I'm going to use some citron green, which is not exactly what I used for a scarf, but it's kind of like it. Of course I am, Dorothy. Of course I am. Doesn't mean I'm going to change anything, but yeah, I don't want to annoy you, so I'm giving you plenty of warning that you can mute me. You can mute me. Alright, so what I'm going to use is citron green, which is this yellow green. One of my favorite colors. Kind of a lime yellow green color. And then we're going to only use the spots. And we're going to go pretty light. And I intend to go over some of what else I have done because we want it to kind of blend all this stuff in the background. Now, you might ask why we didn't do all the background first. I'm glad you asked because I didn't know what I wanted for the background. That's why. Okay. And all right. And then I'm just going to keep going and stenciling. The This is the hard part about a book, is that you have the spine to work around. But it is what it is. And so let's put some more. Okay. Not bad, not bad. So in case you got here after I said what I said when I started, I will not be here for the next 2 Fridays and the next 2 to 3 Mondays. Okay? Just so you know. If I need to, I can always come back over this with some white and tone it down a little bit. We'll find out. I have masked. This is a piece of tracing paper cut out in the shape of the dog that is masking the image, so I'm not worried about going over it with the stenciling. Getting close. We're getting close. I like this particular stencil because it is a combination of regular and irregular. And I like that. Okay, pretty good. He looks pretty spotty, and that's okay. I can handle that. Alright, putting the stencil brushes in the water so they can soak and further fall apart, because that's what they're going to do. And then I'm going to just lift this up and take my mask away so you can see the base coated in aforementioned clearance. Yeah, it'll be mid-October when I am back. Yeah, it surely will. All right, now if I need to, I will come back with some blue, one of these turquoisey colors at the end, and knock back the background if I need to. I may not need to, who knows. Alright, just getting rid of some of the stencil hairs off my palette. Alright, what we're going to do now is I'm going to go back to the hat, because this one, although I had the hat painted before, I have repainted him in this book as opposed to the gesso board that I was using. And so I've got to finish the hat again, shade it and so forth. And then we may do just some, I don't want him to be too realistic. I want him to be kind of quasi-realistic. And you have to be careful when you're doing something that's reminiscent of an actual animal or person that you knew. You have to be careful. There's a fine line between not going far enough and going, you know, you get to a point and you go, well, now that's great. Now I got to go all the way to make it really look like him. And so I don't want to do that. I want this to still have a cartoon or illustration kind of feeling about it. Alright, I'm just going to use water and a paper towel and 2 brushes. This is my standard way of shading on acrylic paint. So I use 2 brushes, one that carries the paint, one that blends out the edge, and water as my carrier. When I was finished painting this, or base coating it in, then I went over the whole thing after it was totally dry, because this is acrylic paint. I went over the whole thing with a coat of matte medium, golden matte medium. And I did that so that if I needed to lift stuff off, I could do that. Alright, so he's going to be at a goofy angle for you guys, but that's the way he's going to be. Okay? So I am picking up, this is burnt sienna. My brush is damp. I'm picking up the long corner, the tall corner of an angled brush, blending it on my palette, and then I'm going to come in here and put the paint. And this color is not going to be dark enough. Okay. So when that happens, you got to darken it up. So I'm going to try and pick up some cranberry wine. And this is why I put the coat of matte medium on there, so that I could pull that off if I needed to. So now I'm going to pick up cranberry wine. We'll get the right color. Once we get it, it'll be right. And we're still not dark enough. Okay. And so I'm going to go to adding burnt umber. When in doubt, sneak up on it. Burnt umber is a dark brown. If you have any questions, be sure you put them in the chat in all caps. Okay, we might have it this time. So I'm shading the parts of his Santa cap that are underneath. So in this case, this is the part that has the pom-pom on it that is under, it's kind of flopped over. Alright, and then I usually use another brush that is just damp, and I work back and forth between the 2 brushes. So one has paint, and one is just water. And since it took a minute to get the color to be the right color, I'm going to have to come back over that a couple of times, but that is okay. So burnt umber is the shading color that we're using. So I'm going to come on around his ear. Again, still on the part of the cap that is flopping over. cleaning up anything that slopped outside. The difficulty of working in a book like this is having to move the book around, but you know, that's just the how of it. All right, let's see if this is dry enough that we can go after this again up here. If you go one step too far, ouch, and you push it too far, then it will pick all the paint up that you put down, and it's very hard to patch it. So that's why we got to kind of sneak up on it. All right, good enough. All right, we're going to go on to the other part of his hat. So again, we're coming around his ear because the hat's behind his ear. And then behind the white fluff. You guys, I am tired today. I am sorry for possibly being perceived as low energy, but that would be accurate. That would be accurate. I am tired today. Okay. All right. So that pretty much has shaded his hat. The back part is darker than the poofy part that's actually on his head, and that's good because that's what we're after. And then just so you can see where I'm headed. Barbara Clark is low energy today too. Yeah, I think a nap might be in my future. I think it could be. All right, we're going to see if this color shows up. If it doesn't, we will find a new color. Let's try it. I'm not sure what color I used before. Yeah, it might be. I don't think it will be. Okay, so I'm not going to go any further. I'm just going to take that off. Let me find another color red. Just a minute. Alright, let's try True Red. The one that I just used was Tomato Spice, which is my go-to red that I use most of the time, is Delta Ceramcoat Tomato Spice. That's usually the one I like. But in this case, it's not enough contrast. So let's try True Red, which is an Americana color. So let's try it because we want it to show up. except this one is pasty, so this is not going to be a good color. That one's going to end up in the trash. All right, third time's a charm, right? Third time's a charm. This one is Americana, or Apple Barrel. This is brand new bottle, so it ought to be good, huh? It ought to be good. It's brand new to the point that I have to take the plastic off of it. Probably, nope. I'll say it probably has a cardboard in it too, but it did not. All right, let's try this one. There we go. That's a much better consistency. Much creamier. All right, I'm using a stylus. There we go. You got to get contrast because it's going to dry. It's going to dry to be a different color, so we got to have enough contrast so that when it dries and changes color, we can still see it. And in this case, I know I've talked before about doing trim work like this and then doing the shading. For something like this, I decided not to worry about that. I decided to just do the shading and then just go ahead and put whatever doodads I wanted on top of it. Because it is just a little kind of cartoon-esque illustration. Kind of artwork. If you want your dots to be exactly the same size, then you need to dip the stylus. You need to clean it off and re-dip it every single time. I want them to be close to the same size, but they don't have to be exactly the same size. Okay? Good enough. All right, there's his little hat. Thanks, Joan. All right, for the white fluff of his hat, I've already shaded it. I'm going to use some, we're going to see if the plain white will show up. Doing the same kind of thing, just dipping the stylus. And so you got to use fresh paint too. It also helps if you will hold the paper. If you're working in a book like this, hold the book so that the paper doesn't rebound on you, because it's real easy for that paper to bounce back. And I know you can't see those dots, but they are there. Here, let's go this way. The one thing you have to watch when you're doing this, if the paint is super wet, and I'm working on a slanted surface, just slightly slanted because of the light. I don't want the light totally. Sometimes the light, I haven't quite got my setup here exactly the way I want it with the lights, because I've got to have the light where you guys can see, the light where I can see. It's a whole thing. Anyway, sometimes the light actually reflects a little bit too much. So if the paint, if being on a slant like this, if the paint is too wet, you got to be careful because those dots will start running down your page. So I'm going to tip up the book a little bit, and then add some more. Now if the white doesn't totally show up, if the white dots don't completely show up every place that I've put one, it's okay, because I don't mind if they are not too present and in my face. Okay, so there's that. Now I also don't want to use a blow dryer, hair dryer, heat tool on this until those are really well skinned over, because the force of the air could splat those dots, and then that's not a good thing. That's not a good look at all, to splat the dots. Not a good look. Okay, so there you've seen what they look like, and from this angle the light just blows out the contrast and the dots, but that's the how of that. Okay, we're gonna skip down, let that stuff dry up there, and I'm gonna come down to where the scarf is, and I'm going to go ahead and I'm gonna stripe the scarf, and I'm gonna find a brush here that I need to find a brush. Okay, I'm gonna use a liner brush, which is a script liner brush. And so the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take this red that I used up here in this hat, the dot red, which was apple barrel flag red. So I'm going to use that, and I'm going to put water in with it. I'll show you once. So I'm going to pick up water, just plain old water, and I'm going to stir that around until it is the consistency of ink, and I twist it back and forth in my hand until the bristles are all together and it's loaded with paint. It's not dripping, but it is going to run so I can paint with it. So let's come over here. And because this scarf is kind of going around his neck, I'm going to angle those stripes a little bit. And let them curve toward the outer sides of his body. Okay, like that. And then this part is the part that comes up and over so I'm going to let that go like this. I'm going to stripe it this way. So it's just a funny little kind of plaid pattern. And I'm just going to give him one stripe. Okay, so we've got some red stripes on his green scarf. And then I'm going to pick up a, I think we'll pick up this gold, or maybe a dark green. Maybe we'll do this dark green. This is Hauser dark green. So let's use that. I was going to use a gold, but I don't think it'll show up. So let's do this dark green. Do the same thing. Brush paint. Same brush, picking up water. The paint consistency has to be that inky consistency, otherwise it will not, you can't draw lines with it. And once you get used to using a brush like this, it's real helpful. Okay, I'm gonna go beside. Remembering that this is a cartoon style drawing. Not meant to be at the real, not like a photograph. Okay, so we have a little plaid scarf, as it were. Plaid-ish, plaid enough. Are you guys still here? Hopefully. The chat has come to a screeching halt. Okay, these are dry up here now, and so you can see that the color has changed. The dots are now flatter. Hopefully you can see that. And this little scarf down here should be about dry, but I'm going to give it a little shot of heat to make sure. Okay, thanks. So I'm just going to give this a shot of heat. That will dry quickly, but I just want to make sure it's totally dry. Okay. Alright, the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to shade this little scarf. So I'm going to use the same green that I had on my palette. So I'm going to use the same green right here, the dark Hauser green. Same shading technique. I use two brushes, one's plain and damp, and the other one is the one that's going to carry water and the paint on the edge, side loaded. So I'm side loading the paint on the brush, so the brush just has paint on the long edge, and I'm going to come right beside the part that flops over, and then blend out the edge of the color. And same thing on the other side. Normally I have the damp brush in my mouth, but that makes it pretty hard for you guys to understand me. Okay. Alright. And then I'm going to come right next to his face and floof. So that will make the suggestion or illusion that it's the scarf is tucking under something. Here we need to do this part too, this little part that tucks behind. Okay, this is a long enough distance that I can't do the whole thing. I'm going to have to stop and blend. Otherwise, if I don't, it's going to dry into a stripe of color, and I don't want it to do that. If you work quickly enough, you can go a longer distance, but if you're not familiar with doing, this is called floating. If you're not familiar with floating color, then take it in. Honestly, it took me quite a long time to get to where I felt comfortable with floating color. Floating one color on top of another to get the effect that I was after. It took me a long time to figure out the consistency of the paint, how much water to carry on the brush. And I've tried this with the artist grade acrylics, and I do much better with craft acrylics for whatever reason. Okay, I'm gonna come in closer so you can see a little bit more of what I'm doing. And so what I'm gonna do now is I'm gonna shade the bottom of his scarf for the same reason. I want it to look like it's rolled around his neck. Okay, so I'm going to come right at the edge with that dark color, because I want that scarf to have the appearance that it's pooching out in the middle and rolling over at the top and rolling under at the bottom. Okay, hopefully you can see that. And sometimes I have to come back a second time. I'm trying to keep my covers of my book out of the wet paint, and also keep it under the camera so you guys can see it. It's a bit of a juggling act here. All right, up here at the top of the part that folds over, I'm gonna do that one more time. So that it really looks like it tucks in around his neck. Okay, good enough on his scarf. Let me come out so you can see. Hi, Terry. Okay, so there is his little scarf, and I may put a little bit more shading down the sides of the part that tucks over. There's his little hat. Okay, let's do just tint his, because right now his scarf is looking like he's got on two different scarves. So I'm going to put just a little bit of the dark green. Just the tiniest bit. That will make it look like it's the same fabric. There we go. Okay. Now it looks like it's all one scarf. Okay. Let's work on his eyes just a smidgen. Because if the eyes look realistic enough, I can deal with it. If the eyes don't, then I'm like, yeah, can't do it. I'm going to use a little bit of, this is a dark gray. It's a pewter gray, kind of a medium gray actually. And I'm going to grab a paintbrush. I'm working with angled brushes this whole time. And I'm going to put some of that gray along on the long edge, side loaded on the long edge. I have his eyes base coated in. And in order to get his eye to kind of tuck back and not look like it's sitting up on top of his, on the outside of his head, I'm putting some of the gray up the top. So it will have the effect of his eye kind of tucking back in, rolling back like there's more of his eyeball. Like his eyes haven't been pasted on top of his face. That's what I'm trying to do. I want them to look like they like there's more eyeball back in his skull. Alright, we're going to do this one. I don't know if that makes any sense at all, but that's my explanation, and that's what I'm sticking to. Okay. And I may have to come back and do those again later. It's hard to say. He needs a little bit more highlight in his eye. So I'm going to come opposite the bright highlight in his eye and give him a little more highlight so his eyes will sparkle a little bit more. Okay, what are we going to do now? Need to stop tapping on the table. Okay, we're going to put a little bit of gray. Let's see. I think I'm going to use actually burnt sienna and a little gray mixed together, side loaded on my brush. So this is burnt sienna, this one and this one picked up together and brushed, side loaded on that brush. And I'm going to put a little bit of that up here so that his little that little white part kind of rolls back. I want his muzzle. This is where I get a little, this is a real challenge for me not to go too far with this, but we're going to see what we can do. We're going to see if I can manage to maintain illustration style. As much as I can allow myself to do that. So I'm going to put a little bit more of that shading color right in there. Well, let me switch to the other camera. I think you can see better, possibly. What I'm trying to get this to do is to get this to come, this part of his head to go back a little bit behind his muzzle. Okay, and then I'm going to come under his nose. And then I'm going to come a little bit around his muzzle so that he doesn't look quite so stark white. And then we're going to go with a little bit more of this color right above his nose, so we can see if we can get that to flatten a little bit. Maybe, maybe not. Doesn't matter that much, Barb. Doesn't matter that much. Okay. Let's do something similar down here. A little bit of burnt sienna, a little bit of the gray, blended together. Thank you all. Thank you. Okay, and let's put a little bit of this around his tongue. Okay, so we've got a little bit. Coming around, we're going to do the same thing. I'm trying to get enough shading in here so that when we add some white hairs, we have some place for the white to show up. If you don't have a little bit of contrast going on, the white just doesn't show. All right, I know I'm probably making you guys just totally dizzy, flipping the book back and forth. Alrighty, so we've got a little bit of shading happening there so that the white, if we come back over with some white, that it will show up. And I'm going to put a few at the side of my brush, just a few suggestions of hairs or furs or whatever you want to call it coming in there. Okay, and let's see, what else do I want to do before I I think he's looking okay, honestly. Oh, thanks. Thanks, Barbara. Okay, I need to tint his tongue so that his tongue is a little bit better color. So I'm going to mix some white and a little bit of red to make a pink color. All right, let's see if we can float this over the edge of his tongue. Yep. Got to get enough contrast that it will show up. Okay, got his tongue showing up a little bit better at the moment. And I need to add a little bit of that same color. Trying to get my color here the way I want it. And I know I'm off screen, but you know, is what it is. I don't have an, it's either you get to see what I'm doing or you get to watch me mix paint and not see what I'm doing. What I'm trying to get it to do is to a little bit more of this pinky nose color. Kind of dib-dabbed. Because this color kind of goes back in a triangle. Okay, we're going to have to let that dry and then see what it does. Okay, at this point, he needs a little bit of that same pinky kind of color that I was just using. In his eyes, just a little bit. Okay, and okay, sorry, I keep saying okay. Yeah, it is what it is. It is what it is. I'm going to use a little bit of the let's see, do I want to do that? I'm going to shade around him. That's what I'm going to do to get him to pop up off of the page a little bit more. So we're going to go with the pewter gray. So I'm going to get out some fresh gray in my palette right here. I'm going to use the side load, the angled brush. I'm going to pick up the gray, blend it on my palette like this, and we're going to see if this is the right color. If it's not, I will work on a different color. Okay? I'm going to put the gray right next to the dog. And if I can keep the blended edge as I go, then I don't have to come back with the second brush. Sometimes I can, sometimes I really need that second brush to make sure that I don't end up with a stripe of color. What I'm after is a shadow that will pop the dog up off of the page, off the background, not off the page, but just off the background. And chase some of those images that I used with the stencils, chase some of those back into the background a little bit more. And if there is any white paper showing, where I didn't absolutely get that everything painted, then I will come back and I will hopefully get rid of that with the shading. And if I get any of the shading slopped up onto the details, I'll chase that off with a brush. Okay, let's keep going. I think we are having a rainstorm. Hopefully you can see him even though you're not looking at him the right way around. Hopefully you can see that he's kind of beginning to come away from the background, and the background is some of that stenciling is kind of fading away a little bit right around him. So hopefully you can see a big difference between this side and this side. I hope. Okay. So there you've got a pretty good, that's pretty accurate. What you're seeing is pretty accurate. As it is in real life, as we say. Okay, I think that's pretty much got him. in the background. Okay. Ooh, stop saying that, Barb. Let's go back to, this is one of the original colors I used, which was cobalt teal. I'm going to go back to this. Some of the spots are a little too bright for me back in the background. So I'm going to mix up a little bit of the cobalt teal, so flat, with a little white in it. And I'm just going to knock some of this back. Just a little bit, so that it kind of lets some of that recede into the background just a little bit more. So I'm just using my fingers. Put some on with the brush. Let my finger blend it a little bit. So that things aren't too in your face, maybe. Not quite as much as it was. Background should be in the background, not in the foreground. And what you're actually seeing and what's actually here are a little tiny bit different. Okay, that pleases me a little bit more than it did a moment ago. I might have to do more later, but you know, it's what it is right now. Okay, let us take a look at our doggy. And I'm going to put a few strokes of fur here and there. I'm going to try not to go overboard. Wish me luck on that. So I'm going to start with a fresh piece of palette paper because the other one was getting too full of stuff. And I'm going to go to my script liner brush. Hey, Linda. Hello, Orange. Good to see you. Joan's leaving and Dorothy's leaving. Good night, girls. Okay. I need to look at my reference here. Okay. This is where it can all go horribly wrong. We don't want that to happen. We don't want that to happen. let's see, what do I want to do first? I'm thinking. I think I'm going to outline him first because I want to maintain that kind of character illustration type thing. So I think what I'm going to do is outline him first and then decide if I'm going to put in individual hairs. Because on the one that I did with the cat, of course he wasn't realistic colors. But I do like the outlining. I do like that a lot. So we're going to do that. And then we'll see what happens. We may stop right there. All right. I'm just going to use a Posca pen. Okay. I'm going to use a black Posca. And I'm just looking at what I did on the cat. Of course, the cat had glasses on. We should have put some glasses on Clarence, but, you know, it's too late for that. Okay. Let's see what happens here. Let's just see what happens. Pardon me, I got the hiccups now. All right, I have a black Posca pen. And I'm going to see if I can start up here at the top of the image so I can hopefully keep my hand out of it. And I am not going to try to do a smooth outline. I'm going to purposely make it jaggedy. And if it doesn't go exactly on the edge of the shape, that is okay. I'm going to try and keep this where you can see it. This further creates the illusion of illustration. All right, so we have a hat. That's good. All right, let's do his eyes. All right. His eyes are okay. I can deal with his eyes. Okay, now let's do I'm going to do his tongue. Yeah, I won't do that yet. Okay, let's do his head. Okay. I'm holding my breath, you guys. Holding my breath. All right, let's keep going on this ear business. It's not good to hold your breath when you're doing artwork, whatever kind of artwork it is. All right, I got to take a breath here for a minute. I truly have to just stop and take a breath a minute. Okay, let me just look at you face to face. And hi, Kathy. Hey, Kel. Yeah, sometimes when you concentrate too much, you need to stop and take a moment. See, if I wasn't doing this with you live on the air, I would be walking out of the room and taking a breath. Instead, I'm here with you. All right. Let us continue, shall we? Let's continue. Okay. What the black outline does and these things is it helps to sharpen the image, and it's also a great way to just completely screw it up. We're trying not to do that. Okay. Still maintaining the illustrative, cartoonish quality. Okay, that's what I'm constantly reminding myself, that's what I want here. Is I don't want it to be too realistic. Realistic-esque, suggestion of, but not total realism. Okay? Okay, Barb. Let's go. All right, we're gonna do this little floof, white floof over here. letting this be kind of cartoonish as we go. Okay, good enough. And now we're going to come down around his muzzle. Let's see, yeah, let's come in muzzle. Not straight lines. Light pressure. And we're going to put some whisker dots. I'm not going to actually put whiskers in, just some dots to suggest whisker holes. The inside of his mouth, and we're gonna do around his little nose. Okay, so I got a little nose, I got his little nose holes in here. And then his little nose is going to get some texture. All right, there's his little nose. I'm going to go ahead and outline the white floof around his face. And then let's do his scarf, which is going to be from here find a place to put my finger to keep the page from bouncing. Okay. And then the part that flops over is going to flop over like that. All right. I'm thinking that at this stage of the game, oops, wrong way. I think, try and get him up here. I'll give you a couple different angles. This one doesn't have quite as much light. This angle doesn't give you quite as much light as there is. There's not quite as much contrast as there actually is on the image. This one burns it out just a little bit, but this is probably closer. Probably right about there is about the true color contrast. Anyway, I think I'm gonna let him be as he is, unless I come back and decide to add some more floofs, and I don't know. Can't decide. I can't decide, you guys. I can't decide. I can't decide. I may have to let Elton look at him because he was Elton's dog. So here he is. Okay, we will call him finished for today. He may be finished for good. You never know. And we'll see what the master says after he takes a good look at him. It's hard to say what Mr. Elton will say about him. Okay, from a distance, you can see what he looks like. I think he looks like a reasonable cartoon illustration of Clarence. Here is the best imagery I have to show you what he looked like. I think it's reasonable. All right, thanks for being here, everybody. I will let you guys go, and we will be back in 3 weeks from now. So I will be gone for 2 Fridays. I will be gone for 2 Mondays for sure, possibly 3 Mondays. I'm not sure when I'll get back. Okay, so you might see me. You might see me, and that'll be a surprise. All right. Have a good week good couple weeks while I'm gone. I'm going to the mountains. Oh, it's good to see you all. I hope you all have a really wonderful rest of your weekend, and I will be back before you know it. Until then, be kind, do something really nice for somebody else, and surprise them. It'll make you feel good and make them feel good. We need more of that. So until I see you again, as always, remember to get creative today, because you know it's easy, and I'll see you before you know it. Bye for now.